like everything that could have gone wrong went wrong. So what will hit, right? 2025 should have been the year of recovery in their eyes. It wasn't. I kept saying that. It wasn't. And it didn't, right? Now 2026 is the magical year. All right, folks, so the blame game begins. So what happens? Now everybody is kicking the can, washing their hands. Mortgage delinquencies are rising. This map, I want to talk about it later on. I also have a story and the mindset, what is actually going through in people's heads, the psychology, right? But let me get back to the banks, right? So now during the pandemic and all of that stuff, this is what they're saying. BOC, Bank of Canada, is basically saying, hey, look, we had a period of low interest and we had a period where people were grabbing more than they could afford. Now they're saying that. And they're saying, well, they took the option of extended mortgages, amortization rates and all of that stuff, right? So the FOMO and all of, and everything that was going on. So it kind of created that mess. It created that iceberg, right? Because at the time we only saw the top of an iceberg, and we know the analogy, you know, only 20% is at the top and usually around 80 to 90% is at the bottom of an iceberg, right? So it will surface whether we like it or not. I'm not here to give you an advice. I'm just telling you to be aware. Like, I'm just trying to give awareness of what's going on, because speaking to some people, they shut me off immediately, and I don't mind. I have to be honest. I don't mind, but they're just not open talking to or talking about it. And I wondered why. So it could be a couple of segments. And one of those is, and I talked about that. It's this graph. I'm going to pull it up right now in a second, right? You see where it's the bull trap, and then the normalized market, and then we get into the fear, right? So it's a textbook example. I talked about is months ago and stuff like that. We will get to the stage, right? So I'll get into a story as promised later on, but let's get into the video together. So the blame game begins. Bank of Canada starts shifting the narrative. I already kind of saying that, right? Like, they're saying, well, we're not to blame because you did it to yourself, right? And partially it is true, but the circumstance was kind of opening up. So people were extending their mortgages, they were going into variable rates, they were maybe promised at a point of time that these rates will remain very low and that everything is stable. Now, the COVID era fueled fire, right? And we know it fueled that fear of missing out. It fueled that ongoing engine that is running, you know, that 8-cylinder to the max all the time, right? And what was happening? Real estate surged roughly around 50%. That is not normal. I mean, that is abnormal. That is an activity that maybe happens once in a lifetime. Maybe it happened before all these big collapses. We have seen this surge, that iceberg, that peak, you know, unbeatable peak. We are winning once again, right? And now, like, we are trying to save ourselves, right? Although the public is most of the public is not aware, right? And maybe some of you guys should not even know about this, but at least try to study where you are and try to position yourself, because you will have to steer the ship maybe for a long time. And I hope it's in the right direction. So imagine 50%. With the equity, people took HELOCs, they bought cottages, they bought condos, they bought unnecessary items, luxury items, luxury vacations. You know, everybody started to explore the world all of a sudden because they had access to funds, and that fuels right and wrong decisions sometimes, right? Because everybody woke up and they wanted to explore life, right? They wanted to shrink, 1 year into 50 years of experience. I don't know. But anyways, so started businesses. I know so many people, oh, I have this and I'm going into a venture and I'm going into this venture and that venture. I'm going to invest and that's going to hit and this is going to hit. And I asked them at the time, how are you sure that is going to hit? Oh, wow, look, man, the world is just going on, it's on fire, man. Whatever I invest, I see gains. I'm like, well, don't you think it's the market's fault and everybody else fueling and dumping money into this economy, and that's why you're winning? But it's for a short period of time, right? You're signing a agreement or a commitment for 20, 30, 40 years in some cases, and you're betting on this short game, which might last only a few years. And obviously it happened. Now we're in a decline. They're piling up more risk, the system, and encouraging risk, right? So the system was rigged to encourage that risk. Okay, so let's move on. And this is that particular monitor right here on the bottom, right? So that tsunami, it's a tsunami. So it's already breaking apart, and 30,000 mortgages are in arrears, right? Like there's mortgage delinquencies. So they're usually calculated when a person not paying their mortgage for 60 days or 2 payments, 2 months, right? So at that point, you're triggered, red flag, and all of that stuff, right? Think about it. 30,000. That's not a small number, right? I mean, you can spread it and you can calculate it all you want, but that's not the only segment. Let's move on. Ontario delinquencies are up 71.5% year over year, highest since 2009. 1.4 million people missed a credit card payment. That's insane. 1.4 million. Why? Because maybe that credit card or that type of credit is the easiest. You can have it immediately. Interest rate is very high, but you have a minimum payment that you have to pay back in order to ride that amount, right? So I don't know the exact figures, but let's say $5,000, the minimum payment is $50 a month, right? But you can have access to $5,000 immediately. Now, how long is it going to take you to pay off that $5,000? Only God knows. It might be 50 years if you're stuck, right? So people are just banking and praying that something will hit, right? In their business, lottery, you name it, something will hit along those lines, and then they're just gonna wipe it and wash it out, and they're gonna square themselves to zero, and here we go again, right? So I don't know, it is very risky to think like that. Now, credit card payments dropped by 53%. People are simply treading water, right? They're just surviving into a spot. Like, imagine you're dropped in the middle of the ocean. Where are you gonna go? What's the point of you swimming? Now, there's a different story if somebody drops you in an ocean, but you see land. Now it's worth fighting, right? It's always worth fighting for your life, right? But you gotta have an idea. You gotta have a plan, right? Like, what do? Right? Like, are you gonna save energy? Try to find the tree floating around, right? And just hold on to it. Maybe hope and pray that a big ship comes by. And you understand what I'm saying? So you gotta have a plan right here, right? Even though you're in the situation, but most people don't. They're like, look, they're gonna find me in this ocean. First of all, nobody's looking for you, okay? So nobody's looking for you. Nobody is out there to save you. The alarm is not public yet, right? So by the time they figure it out, you might be finished. All right, so let's move on. This is a real life fallout. I don't know. I don't know how to explain it, but let's get right into it. So this is a real story. So they bought a property 2019. Etobicoke and stuff like that, good area, not a problem, everything's fine. So they have seen an equity jump from 2019 all the way into 2020, 2021. Then they obviously went into the venture of buying a cottage. Why? Because Airbnb, everybody's making money hand over fist, and it is just the logical and the most right thing to do at the time. So obviously they purchased this particular Muskoka retreat, right, at $1.35 million, right? Then they go further because obviously they heard somebody saying that the best way making money is in pre-con. You guessed it, pre-construction. Buy this unit. You don't have to really close on it. Just sit, assign it before you get the keys and make the money. Why not? I mean, it's the best thing to do since sliced bread. All right, so they did that, right? So what happened? Then they funded more business ventures, right? Everybody had an idea, right? Because we had a lot of time, we worked from home, we had ideas. Okay, we can work from home here, we can do this, we can shift here and there in order to make gains here, and everybody became the expert. So now this is what happened, and this is what I don't understand. So that cottage went from 1.35 million to 1.1 million if they're lucky, right? Like I believe personally that it's somewhere in the $950 to $1 million range if they're lucky, okay, to be honest with you. The condo, I believe, was $699, and it went, now market value is probably somewhere around $520. All right, these business ventures, they're not doing well. At least nobody's talking about them, right? Why? Because they're probably not making money, or they defaulted on their head, right? So what's the outcome? Now when speaking, right, is like it will hit, right? And I'm like everything that could have gone wrong went wrong. So what will hit, right? 2025 should have been the year of recovery in their eyes. It wasn't. I kept saying that. It wasn't. And it didn't, right? Now 2026 is the magical year, right? And then after 2026, if you know how to count, it's 2027, if we make it by then, and then that's gonna be the magical springtime. Well, I think we're way out of any concrete plan. And I'll get into this in a second, why I believe that. So this particular family will need to accumulate a couple of $1 million just to stay afloat, right? In this environment, I'm not saying it's impossible. Everything is possible. But my friend, you need a real concrete plan in order to make it work. So what I want to talk to you about is this map right here. I know they're saying, I get it. They're saying, look, shortages of homes, they want to build X, Y, and Z, and all these houses are in the plans and works, and everybody's stopping us, and there's a shortage. Where is the shortage? There are hundreds upon hundreds. This is real-time data, actually, all right? So let me check how many in Southern Ontario. Like, this map is not even covering north of Barrie. It's not, obviously, it's not covering Windsor. It's not covering, it's covering Niagara Falls on this, and on the east, it's probably till Ajax, all right? So at this point, 74,905 listings. So this is what's happening, ladies and gentlemen. Hear me out. All right. So we are in gridlock. We are literally stuck in traffic with these buyers. One, because they're asking questions. Is it going to go further down, right? So it's now a debate. It will not, and okay, so let's leave that. But now the time of a buyer making a decision, it's almost next to impossible, right? Because they have so much to look at in every price category. Give me a price category: 500,000, 700, 900, 1.5 million, 3 million, 7, any category, it is full of these listings. So what happens? Buyers and buyer agents, right? Okay, buyer agents are fed up to begin with, okay? And the buyers are choosing, right? So let's say they go to Burlington and they say, hey, look, I can buy a semi-detached for 900,000. Okay, no problem. But now they don't stick to a particular community. They keep sourcing themselves out because the grass is always greener on the other side. Hey, look, if we go to Stony Creek, we can get a small detached. Hey, how about if we go to Welland? We can get a farm for $900,000. Hey, how about Ajax? For $900,000, we can get a mansion. Hey, how about this and how about that, right? So the map got extended that almost these buyer agents are losing their mind because they don't even know how to service their clients. Yes, they have a budget. If for some reason they got approved somewhere somehow, okay, and they have some equity and they want to make a move, it's almost impossible. It's like shooting a walking target, not even walking, a flying target, okay? So that's the problem, right? So all of this map, it's confusing everybody, right? Too much choice, too much, right? And the sellers are being anxious. Why? Because they're in the fire, right? It is hard to deal with these payments. They're in the fire and they're pushing these listing agents. Why there's no action? Why can you not get me an offer? Why is this? Well, the market hasn't changed. Are you watching TV? Are you informing yourself? This is not how everybody's saying. What are you talking about? Nearly 75,000 listings. And on top of that, where's the shortage? Right here. Let's sell this first, and then we'll get into the shortage. Simple economics. And then we move forward. But anyways, let's move on. Now I want to get into the blame game. Who is really responsible? So listen, who can you really blame? Nobody, right? Because Bank of Canada blames the borrowers. Borrowers blame the bank, obviously. And then banks blame the inflation. And then it's a never-ending loop. And then at the end of the day, Canadians are defaulting. All right, so that's simple. That's the blame game. Consequences. What does it mean for 2025 and 2026? Renewals are coming, and they're coming in heavy. They're coming in hot, and they've been coming in. And trust me, I heard stories, and it's not pleasant to hear, right? Like, and we can say, hey, look, man, like your mortgage only went for, $1,200-$1,300 a month. Like it's not that big of a deal. Yes, I understand that. But what if someone is salary based? They cannot dip into anything anymore. That's their cap, right? So they have to deal with it, right? But everything else went up. Mortgages, taxes, insurances, you name it, right? Everything went up, right? So that's the problem. Overall, it's not one thing. It always follows 1,000 things that you least expect. All right. So payment shock will force massive layoffs, especially in Ontario, right? So now when we get into that, like pre-construction, right? That's one segment. But that segment holds so many other segments. Construction people, lawyers, designers, trades, logistics, transportation, you name it. Like there's so much involved into a project. It's massive. We're talking hundreds of thousands of workers are online here, right? So as soon as that starts to accumulate, right? So we have that segment. Then we have other segments where people are lacking, right? Like just in businesses general, tariffs, inflation, everything is kind of like being squeezed, right? There's really no money left, right? So what happens? Automatically, it's a recession. We've been probably in a recession for a long time. It's just we keep borrowing and patching that hole this month, and the next month it will be better. How? I don't understand how and where and why it would be better. Because in order to be better, the huge change, massive structural changes in our economy need to happen in order for that to switch overnight. And even if it would take a little bit of time, right? So let's get further. Defaults will rise again quietly just in 2008, but no one wants to see it. I talked about that on this channel, like on every single video, basically, right? So nobody wants to see it. And what they say, most of the people that don't believe in this, let's say, story or in this shift, right? Even though the numbers are showing it, like, you know, like you show them the graph. Here's the peak. This is where we are. No, that's not true, man. What do you mean? The numbers don't lie. That's the graph. That's the peak. This is where we're heading. That's it. Now my graph, it's from Toronto Real Estate Board, or from Canadian Real Estate Board, or from legitimate sources. I'm not making it up. And I don't care really if you believe me or not, right? Because it is maybe there's no reason for me to for you to believe me, because you're maybe in a different bubble. Maybe you bought your property 40 years ago. Maybe you paid it off. Maybe you have a good life, and God bless you. Have a great life. You know what I mean? But for the other people that are in the trenches, like, they still need to fight to figure this out, right? And maybe they have to wake up to the idea that, hey, look, this is serious. Maybe I should start rejigging my life now, because if it hits me, it'll hit me hard, right? So I believe that that's the problem. And I know, like, I don't know it personally, but I know in 2008, prior to that, people were, you know, partying in the US. Nobody even saw it coming until it hit them like a train. Boom. You know what I mean? And, you know, 1929 and all these mega and not so mega defaults or recessions that countries had, not only Canada. Like, I mean, you know, there's Japan, there's Argentina, there's different parts in the world that have seen this, right? And yet they say, well, it cannot happen to us, right? Because Canadian real estate market is unbreakable. Well, it already broke, so why is it unbreakable? Because that's the only thing what we have, and now we're calling it unbreakable? I mean, you're as strong as your weakest link. That's very simple, right? So the final message and the final thought, this is not a blip. And this is my opinion. It's not a blip. This is not even a correction. This is a major shift. And and I even did a video on this, the mother of all crashes, right? This is the mother of all crashes. Everything is inflated. Nobody can hold on to anything. And probably it will start collapsing faster and faster and faster. And you will hear more and more and more of it. So the purpose of this video is not to educate you, is not to tell you what to do. You do whatever you want. It's just awareness, a what if scenario, right? So if we have a plan or no plan, we also have to have the what if this happens, right? So it might help you, and I hope you gain some valuable information out of this particular video. And if you believe that somebody's out there that would love to see a video like this, please share it, like it, and I'll see you in the next one.